Welcome to the Red Letters Podcast. In this podcast, we explore topics that can be life transforming while delivering a message of hope. Oh, that is so good. Yeah.
Well, I even as a parent, though, there's a lot of talents and giftings you guys had when you were younger that could have, if I would have been more focused on, because when we grew up, we were like, no, you got to go to school, go to school, do this, do that. And like, even for example, Santee, when he was playing the video games. And at one point I'm thinking, wow, maybe we should buy him the whole setup, and let him, do YouTube videos and stuff. But I know it was hard for him to think, oh no, he's not going to stay home playing video games and all this. But a lot of the times your kids have these talents and giftings, and as parents, I believe we can hinder that,
right?
And hinder that passion,
because
even
it's not our dream,
exactly. So I think as parents, if I can go back and change things, I would have fed into that a little more.
Oh yeah,
with looking at what your passions were and what your giftings were, and maybe guided you down that path and encouraged you even at a young age to even, think business for yourself, because I never had that growing up.
Right.
And I never, experienced that because my dad would always push me, to do the business. And I look back and I had so many opportunities where if I would have just listened to my dad during that time when he had when he was doing locksmithing, and not think about my selfishness and what I wanted to do.
Right, yeah.
And think about, because I think about now looking back, if I would have taken over the business when he had wanted to give it to me, right? I would have been so well off right now. Even as I would have been probably a very young entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I would have started my journey at 19, self-employed. And I would have been doing really, really well, but I didn't listen to my dad. But going back to, the kids and stuff like that, I think that looking back, if I would have just encouraged that more and not thought about, no, you need to do, go this route or that route, and because I believe the Lord set us up, Tony and I, self-employed, because I always think about, God, you put us in this business to give us freedom to do things. And I feel like we didn't utilize a whole lot of that even with our kids, regarding, because we were always, no, they need to do this. I'm not going to support them. And what I mean?
Yeah.
And
well, a lot of it was like the older mentality.
Right.
And,
Has to do with
so I think we did the best with what we knew how to
the
do.
time.
And it was still a stretch from what was given to us. You know what I mean? But the Bible does say that children are arrows in the hand of an archer. So we need to direct them. But one thing that I think it would be worth kind of touching on is how do people, when they're considering stepping in or not stepping in, but if a couple is pursuing their family life and growing their family, and then debating whether to have one or both spouses work, especially in California. What does that look like? Because, I think that's kind of something that maybe we should mention on this episode, because that kind of is some of the beginning steps of what we're now talking about.
Right. But before we go there, Tony, because I think that's a great segue, but before we go there, I'm so glad that you shared that, because this is what we're talking about. Like when you were 19 years old, why didn't I do this? So it's like, obviously you don't have a regret because you guys are doing well and you went into locksmithing. So it's actually good. But think about how many aren't that lucky. Think about how many people are sitting back saying, gosh, I was 19 years old and I could have, should have, and I didn't do it. I didn't pursue it. And this is why we're talking to that younger generation. It's like, so you don't have to be in your 30s or in your 40s and and be thinking, why didn't I do it? Like I had the opportunity there at 19. So this is your opportunity. Like take a chance on yourself. Throw fear out the window and just go for it. Whatever it is that you have that passion for. And it may change in a couple of years, but at that moment, it was what was working for you. And the other thing really quickly I wanted to touch on was creativity. So God created in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I've heard this sermon, or I don't know what it was, a couple of years back, that said the only thing that separates us from it said in the podcast that I was listening to, from a horse or a pig, was that the only thing that separates us, which it took me years to figure it out. I was like, why did he say that? But it's like that the human being, was giving that mind to create. So when you're sitting there and we're watching Netflix or we're on our phone, we're not allowing our mind to do what it was created to do, was to create. So yes, we
so
can
It
do
gets dormant.
something. Like we have that gift within us to go forth and do something, but our mind is constantly, I'm going to go to another task. I'm going to do this. I want to stay busy, where you don't allow what God gave you to become, to come to pass. Like I have something in me that the world needs, and you
Right.
have it. So if
Yeah.
you're sitting around and you have the time, and while you're sitting at your job hating it, be thinking about, what is it that God put in me? Like, what is
Right.
it that I'm supposed to be doing? And maybe you'll create the next, I don't know, handbag. I don't know, but maybe you'll be the one that creates that something that is needed out there. You
Yeah.
smile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really good.
Yeah, and don't get it confused that busy don't equal productive.
Exactly. Oh, so good. Yeah, yeah. That's so true. Yes. So we go back into that question
Yeah.
about where at this time, living in California, but it's basically living anywhere. Do you mind, Gio, if I ask you that question? If you have thought about that, like down the road when you and your wife have children,
Yeah.
have you guys thought about, okay, is staying home an option? And let's say it was.
Yeah.
Would you want either you or your wife to stay home and raise your child?
I think I would. Yeah. I think if it was like available to us, if it was doable, because my mom, being able to stay home and raising us, I feel like did so much good to all five of us.
Right.
Especially in those first couple years.
Yes.
I think even if it's just that, if it's just the first couple years, just so we're, Jess is able to nurture and be a mom, and then even just focus on herself and, getting time away from work,
Right.
I think it might be good for her. But I think if it was available, I for sure wouldn't mind Jess staying home. And then we've had that conversation too. Like if Jess was like working at this big company,
Yeah.
like I wouldn't mind. I get the old fashioned like
Mentality.
mindset. Yeah. But I don't have anything against a dad staying home and being able to care for the like stay home dad.
Yeah.
I would say, well, the question that comes to me is the thought that, well, what about, there's people who think, well, a man could stay home and take care of the child and they can do just as good of a job as a mom.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to share my opinion. And well, it's not just an opinion, it's
roll,
proven.
please.
Okay. I think it's crucial that a mom stays
Oh, yeah.
at least the first 5 years with a child, because even I think about Moses when Pharaoh's daughter drew him out of the water, and then Moses' sister said, "Let me go get someone to nurse the baby." And so when Moses' mother took him, she nursed him and took care of him for the first 5 years, and then brought him back to Pharaoh's daughter. There's something about a mother, because when it's a mother and the baby in the womb. There's a connection there, and there's giftings and equipping that the Lord places in a woman, in us, to be able to nurture and to attend to a baby's needs, because it's something that becomes natural. Just like a mom, you could put a mom in a room and there could be we could be sitting in the other living room, right, Mary?
Yeah.
And our kids, we can have 10 kids in this living room, but we know exactly when our baby's crying out, for help and things like that. Or exactly the baby could be crying, exactly what the baby wants. If it's hungry, it needs its diaper changed. It's not something you have to really guess. It's something that naturally. But it's that bond, that connection, as when you carry that baby for the first 9 months in your womb. It's just something that God created women, right, a certain way to not only be an incubator and to be able to, carry this little being in your body, but also give us the equipment and the tools to nurture and raise that baby. I'm not saying,
that a man
can't do it.
Yeah.
100%. I'm not saying that. I think it'll be a little more harder for a man to do that, right?
Yeah.
And I know, and I get the situation where there's a lot of men who do stay home and love to stay home and raise beautiful babies, but I think it's a little bit harder for them to understand. They have to learn it. Whereas a mom really, a lot of things
instinctive.
become instinctive,
Yeah.
natural. So I think it's really crucial. I think personally, the first 5 years, a mom should be with the baby, at least the first 5 years,
Right.
you know?
And I guess I'll say from the male perspective, I totally struggle with the whole thought of
Not working.
dad being the homemaker.
Yeah.
Just for me, I don't even feel like it's 100% old school. I just feel like the equipment that God gives a man, they get their fulfillment from being productive and conquering and being a solution to problems. I think that that's just the way that God wired a man. Not that those problems aren't at home, but I feel like they have to be contributing something. And if not, I think it does something to the inside of it, cripples the inside of a man some way, shape, or form to be who they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
That is so good,
Yeah,
Tony.
That's good.
I've never heard argument like that. Now I don't have anything to come back with it because you may be right. Men could have been wired that way, but so I'm just going to challenge you with this.
Sure.
So if man is supposed to be head of the home, and the opportunity came up where both of you are successful in your careers and both of you want to work, but both of you want children, and you decide, okay, we're going to have children, but she decides, I don't want to stay home and raise a child. That's up to you now. And because you have the means to do it, you would see an issue with that. Not so much, obviously, an issue. It's just a challenge in your way of thinking.
Well, actually, I agree with everything you just said. Maybe I should have prefaced it by saying that not that the woman isn't supposed to be working, but that the man should be working.
Should be, okay.
So if she does as well, it complements everything. And if they can adjust and work their family life and raise the kids and they both are in the workplace, beautiful.
Right.
But I just struggle with the thought where the woman goes to work and the man don't.
Stays home,
That's what I'm highlighting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not that what do you call it? In other words, I'd never have had a problem with seeing a woman go to work because I've seen that in like my uncle and my aunt. They did have their own business for a short period of time, but they've been employees and they've had wisdom to where they have multiple properties. They're doing fine. They're probably doing better than a lot of entrepreneurs I know, and they're just working a regular job. They excel in where they're at,
Right, okay.
but they. I think my aunt, she stayed home for a little bit when the kids were little, but in general, she was never really 100% a homemaker. She's always been in the workplace. So watching them as I grew up, I saw how they were able to manage that, and they are killing it since I've been a kid. It works perfect for them. So to me, that's where I would never say that the woman has to stay home.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I was just thinking right now, everything you were saying, because if I think if you're going to have kids, I think someone needs to stay home the first 5 years at least, because I think that's the years that the child's developing, even emotionally, physically, in every area. And I think that's when the child's most influential. So let's say you have a baby, right? And both of you are working and neither one of you want to stay home with the baby. So, okay, we're going to put the baby now in daycare. You're thinking that child in preschool or the daycare is being influenced by whatever they're surrounded by those first 5 years, right? And then they go into kindergarten. I think a child's development it's so crucial. If one can stay home and raise the child for those first 5 years, or split it up to where, one works part of it and the other one works the other part, But I think why even think about children if you can't help in the development of it? Because you think about it, you go to work 8 hours, some people more, come
exactly.
home, or you go pick up the child. You're really not being a parent.
No.
And you're really not giving that time to nurture your child, because by the time you come home, you're tired, you're exhausted.
Yep.
And then guess what? You're going to take out your frustrations
On that
and everything on that child. So it really, for me, you know, you got to, if you're going to have children, if you don't have children now, think about that before you have children.
Right.
You know, because I think if you're just going to have a child and then take it straight to somebody else to raise your child, because that's what it is really.
Yeah. When
You're giving
taking
your
the-
child over to someone else out of convenience because you need to work. Don't have a child. God forgive me for saying this, but I know it's gonna maybe make some people angry.
Yeah.
But don't.
Right.
Don't do that, because if when your child grows up and then has all these issues, and you know what, or you're having, you know, where it's not even listening to you and then you find yourself disciplining the child out of anger and frustration because you don't, and really it boils down to your fault.
Yeah.
And you got to think about who's raising your child, because you don't see what's going on. Don't have a child.
Yeah.
Don't bring a child into the world if you can't at least figure out how to, at least the first 5 years,
Right.
put in that child everything, you know, that time and that nurturing that child needs.
That child
Let me chime in a little bit, because
Yes,
it's going to
go
get
for
good. I totally understand where you're coming from, because I know how we set up our home. Okay. But I'm going to throw a wrench in it, because one, I don't think that, I know that the first 5 years statistically and all that, they say that that's the most influential years of a child.
Formative years of a child.
So totally understand that. If you can get close to that, I think that's a win. But here's the part that I was thinking about when you were talking. You were a good, active mother pouring into your kids during that time. What about the mom that's half-heartedly raising their kids, staying home full time, and compare that to a mom that's doing the very best she can, that she was able to stay home 6 months, a year, and when she's with her child, she's 100% an active, participating mother, speaking life into her kid. Which mom would you rather have for your grandson or granddaughter?
I'll take Mom B.
Yeah. So it's not so much like you were saying that this should be the picture perfect thing, but just because you stay home don't mean you're going to be a good mother. That doesn't mean you're going to be actively participating and pouring into that child. So I think that there should be like a little underlying things that we should mention, because just being home doesn't make it a win.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that part. But I also agree, well, I'm going to say this too, and people might not like it, but you know what? Protect yourself.
What do you mean?
Don't think about it before you have a child, because a lot of young people go out there, and this is probably another subject, but will go out there to tie the other person down and get pregnant, you know, or they get pregnant for the wrong reasons and they really don't think it through. And they don't realize that and they think, oh, having a baby is a beautiful thing, but it's almost like going out and buying a puppy and bringing the puppy home and realizing how much work that puppy takes to take care of.
Right.
Right. And then you end up rehoming the puppy because it's just too much for you. Imagine having a baby, and mind you, the baby knows and feels everything that you're going through in the womb,
In the uterus,
even if it's rejection or maybe I was an accident. But to go back to that, I think really rethink and really ask yourself, is bringing a child right now good, you know, at the right time? Is it, and look at everything, your whole situation, because I feel like you can bring in a baby and think, oh, well, we'll make it happen. Like we winged it. Yeah. I know we winged it, you know, when we had the children, you know, I had Anthony, and then when the other 4 came, we winged it because both of us weren't in a good financial situation. We were both on unemployment.
When we first got married.
When we first got married, we didn't have finance. He was getting laid off. Our marriage wasn't the greatest at all. So we had a lot of things going on in our life, you know, when we had our kids. But I thank God, you know, that when I did give my life to God and my kids were all, you know, they weren't even born yet. I was able to, despite what we were going through, still be able to nurture and, you know what I mean, raise my kids, even though they were being raised in that's actually another podcast, to be honest with you, because I thank God that God protected all my kids. You know what I mean? Because they all could have been worse. You know what I mean? I think just don't have a baby just to have a baby.
Do you mind if I chime in? Yeah. So I actually wanted to add something just I want the listener, just to put something on the listener's mind. If you already have a child, if you're already there, if you were a teenage parent, if you're a single parent, situations are different and everybody's life is different. And this is not an attack, a personal attack on anyone. This is just, we make mistakes. I'm one of the biggest mistake makers. I had babies really young. I didn't know what I was doing. I never had God in my life. I would never go back and say, well, I shouldn't have had them. They're already here. I didn't know what I was doing. Would it have been much easier? Oh my gosh, would it have been much easier if I at least would have known what I was doing, if I would have known how to nurture and provide a nurturing environment. All I knew was I love them so much. I don't want them to get hurt, but I was a very strict mom, very, very, very mean, I was a very mean mom. I know. And I've had it thrown in my face. Yes. And those are my biggest regrets. But for the person out there, if you haven't had a child, if you have this career, something that I heard is like, be spiritually filled, because that's going to transfer to your child or whatever. If you decide, okay, I do want a child, this is what I want to do. Okay, you go out and you have this child, but don't, like Ida said, don't bring a child to make a situation better. Don't bring a child into this world because you think, oh, I'm going to keep this person by bringing a child into this world. Those are all the wrong reasons to do it. Like, don't bring a child just for those reasons. Be mentally prepared, because other type of preparedness, we're never going to be ready. We're never going to know what to do when the baby first cries. We're never going to know what to do with any of that. But for all those single moms out there, know this: your child was not a mistake. You are not a mistake. We're just going to figure out life now from here, but be spiritually filled. And what does that mean? Seek God for everything that you do. Like, in everything that you're doing, seek God. And okay, I have to work. Like, I went to work, and it's like Tony said earlier, when you are with your child, show them that quality time. It's not being busy doesn't mean being productive. It's like, just because you showed up, or for those moms that do, I know some women who don't work, and if they're listening to me, they probably won't even know that I'm calling them out. But some women that work and their kid is in ballet, their kid is in some other music class, their kid is doing this. So all they do is transport the child here, there, and everywhere. But where is that quality time with the parent? But she loves being a single mom. Stay-at-home parent. Like, I would love to be a stay-at-home parent if my child was always gone in an activity too. But that's different. It's like, take that time. And for all those moms that are stay-at-home moms, get off your phone. Like, I'm going to be completely honest. Get off your phone and pay attention to your child. And the reason I say this is because I have the good fortune of being able to walk into homes and observing what's going on. And I walked into a home last week. It's a sober living. It's part of what I do for my work. And there was a couple of moms in the living area. And I walked into the kitchen area, and they have a table set up kind of like this. And the children, everybody from 8 to down 2 years old, are sitting around the table, everybody on their device. Every child on a device. And the moms, and I'm like, wait, why aren't we outside? Why don't we take the kids out? And they're like, no, they love their devices. You take it away from them, they're going to cry. Like, how long are they on these devices? They just sit there, but these are stay-at-home moms. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So
it's convenient.
It's convenient for the parent. For the parent. Yes. And I also have to strongly agree, Ida, what you said. So when foster kids are going, they find a placement for these foster kids. Well, I used to have this supervisor. She was really amazing. She would always talk to the foster parent and say, is there any way you can take leave from work? And the parents were struggling with it, like, yeah, maybe I can take 2 years. She said, if you can't do 5, take 2. Because when this foster child, whether they're 8 or whether they're 1, they're going to need those years made up for them. So you're going to have to invest, she would say, invest time in nurturing, loving, and showing consistency in their life. Then they're ready to go out there and face the world. And that's what those formative years are. When we provide a nurturing environment for these children, that we equip them hopefully always spiritually, we equip them to go out there and face the world, because the world's not nice. So you have to equip the children. So I always wondered why my supervisor would do this. Every time she signed up and had the foster parent go through training, she's like, can you, one or the other? It was always either the man or the woman, can one of you stay home with the kid for at least 2 years? So I strongly agree with you. Unless you're a single parent, I get it. Like it's very challenging when you're a single parent to also want to stay home. But at least when you are with your child, be present with your child.
Yeah.
I guess we could touch on, I would really like to touch more on like, if for those individuals who do want to go to school, what resources are out there for them? I think that would be great. Like if you're an individual and you really want to go back to school, you can go. It doesn't matter what state you live on. You can research this, and there's information out there on scholarships, on Pell Grants, on whatever it is. You can make this education happen. There's something else for people who want to work for the county. Like, I don't know what it's called, but it's a 401 something. But it's so interesting. Had I known, I wouldn't be in so much school debt. But it's actually if you give your life to the county, that's what they call it. But it's basically you give 2 years to the county once you finish your degree, and the county pays off that degree. So you can actually look into this. We've had a lot of interns that are coming to California because they did part of this program.
Oh, wow.
And it's through, you can just Google it, look it up. I'll get the information and we can put it on our website, because there are programs out there where you can get your whole schooling paid for. And if you are at a certain jobs, many jobs will pay for you to go back to school. Like, they literally pay for your college or for you to go and get a degree, so you can either move up in the company or they want to keep you in the company, but they want to be able to market you and pay you the right money, but they need that degree. So I would really, really encourage that person that's either that in that transition phase. Am I going back to work? Do I want to find another job? Do I want to go to school and go to work? Like, there's information out there for those people that want to do that.
Yeah.
And I think somebody, going back a little bit to what we were talking about, being frustrated in the workplace. I was talking to a young man last night, and he had just got into a new job that pays better. And the job is like super easy for him, where he's in 3 months here, he became the number 2 guy in his department. And he's just like, man, this is so easy that it's like, I'm doing this in my sleep already. And I'm looking at trying to maybe get a second job, because this isn't really any effort for me, so that I could get ahead. And so we were talking last night, and I turned around and I said, and he was sharing like how happy he is at this new place, but he's just like, I feel like I would like to get rewarded a little bit more, or be able to, because my family's growing. Right. So I said, you know what, just hearing you, here's a thought. He goes, what's that? I said, this is something that most people don't do, and I think it might benefit you to do. He goes, what's that? I said, maybe you should talk to your supervisor or your manager and say, hey, and because he's been there a few years and been able to kind of establish some kind of track record where they know his work ethic and all that stuff, as I said, maybe you should open the conversation with him and say, hey, you know, I really love working here. I've learned the system and this and that. My family's growing, and I just want to start a conversation with you on what does it look like down the road as far as advancement? What opportunities is there that I can grow with the company?
Right.
And he turned around, and his eyes kind of like, oh, wow, I didn't even think of that. I said, I never thought about that before either when I was working for somebody. I said, but one, it's going to make you stand out now.
Right.
Now the radar is going to be up,
on
you know, and you might even create a position that doesn't exist because you brought that question up.
Right.
And I said, so it's going to separate you from the get-go once you bring up that conversation, and try to have that ongoing. You try to find out when this conversation should take place. And he was like, wow, that's pretty good. I said, because you might not have to leave and work a 40-hour job and a 20-hour job while you're growing your family trying to make ends meet. What if that conversation opens a door for you where you're getting paid the same, but now you're only working still 40 hours a week?
Right.
And he was just like, wow, that's amazing. I said, I just thought of it because I know you, and I know you're a great guy, and I believe you're a good worker and all that stuff, but it might be just something worth bringing up. And it just kind of opened his eyes. And to somebody who's listening, if you're in that same position, even if you've been there for a while, sometimes it's worth asking, how can I grow with the company? And because I love it here and all that other stuff, and maybe doors will open for you without you having to feel like you have to choose whether to stay or go.
Right.
So,
and that's really good, Tony, because I believe that a lot of companies do see your value and they do see your loyalty, but I believe that it's us that when we don't speak up, they're like, well, I'm not going to bring it up to him because that's just another task. But I think that's really good, because if you have that conversation, now at least you know, like, what does this look like long term? But again, I'm going to go back to this. I believe that a lot of people don't do it because it's going to be an effort on them. I'm going to have to show up. I'm going to actually have to do more. So I'm going to complain, but I'm comfortable here as far as the workload is. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because are you willing to step up? Are you willing to step up to the plate? That means you're going to have to do a little bit more because you want to be in charge with more responsibility.
that's good. Yeah.
No, I was just thinking that thought, the McDonald's, how McDonald's started.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it was with two brothers, right? And there's a movie out, and I was watching the movie. I was kind of disappointed at the end how the outcome came.
Yeah.
But looking at the storyline, here's a guy who's selling milkshake machines, right? And he comes across two brothers who have this method of making hamburgers and fast food simple. They simplified it, right? But then here's a guy who's selling milkshake machines who has this bigger vision and a bigger idea, and he ends up taking McDonald's to a whole nother level. But the mindset of the owners was small. They were like comfortable.
Yeah.
They were
With that,
happy with what they had. But then here's somebody else who says, no, he saw a bigger vision, a bigger dream, and look what he did. So sometimes it even takes that one person where maybe your boss, they're comfortable, or maybe they don't even think about the ideas you might carry. The creativity
that's within that person.
And so don't hold back, share it, but if you're willing to run with it, right?
Yeah,
Because this guy, I don't remember his name, but the one who now owns McDonald's, he turned around and ran. He wasn't complacent. He took this idea and he ran hard, and look where he's at today.
But he put in the work, right?
Yes, he put in the work.
He put in the work.
Yes.
And even if I know we were talking about younger people that might be indecisive and not know what direction to go, I actually want to encourage people that are even in a higher age bracket to feel that just because time might not be on your hands, that change can happen. And I was actually, when you brought up McDonald's, I was thinking of KFC. Colonel Sanders was in his 50s when he became KFC. Yeah. So, age, yes, we could utilize it a lot more when we're younger, but don't think creativity doesn't come in your older age either. Exactly. So I think it's just something to, provoke your thinking, like what else, because you have all this experience under your belt, maybe you just need to take some steps back and reevaluate what you're doing with your life and what direction it's going. And another person that I'll bring up is Robert Kiyosaki. He's the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Oh, yeah. He was a successful man, all this stuff, and then he turned around and he pretty much, I think it was around 40, something like that, and he ended up taking, I want to say it was 1 or 2 years off, because he got advice from somebody saying, hey, you've lived half your life. You should take about a year off or two and turn and go ahead and just go get a loan and just reevaluate where you are in life. And he came back, and now he's he's
billionaire.
And now he's like ultra, successful. And it was because he's took that time to step back, reflect on his life, and okay, is there any pivot that I need to do to turn around and make the value of my life and what I do bring, a little bit higher level of success than where I'm at right now. And that was something that he did. And he's probably enriched the lives of so many more people in his second stab at life, if you will, or his work situation. that he's impacted so many more people now because he took that time to reflect. So I think it's just worth throwing that out there, depending, where you are in life and your age group or bracket. Sit back and reflect and see, is there more to your life that you need to give? Because I would just guesstimate there's probably about 80 to 90% of the people listening that are in a higher age bracket that think I'm done. I'm ready to throw the towel
This is
in.
it. Mm-hmm.
And I beg to differ with you that you got more inside of you, but you just got to be willing, like it was mentioned earlier, be willing to put in the work and start dreaming again.
Yes.
Because if you're not dreaming again and you don't feel like, you've attained everything that you want, it's not too late. You still got breath. God's not done with you.
God's not done with you. And I love how both of your stories, it was somebody else. It was a friend who came in and said, or in your case, there was another person with a creative mind that said, okay, we can take this to another level.
Yeah.
So sometimes we can reach out to our friends, and maybe it doesn't even have to be a friend. Be willing to listen to someone else, because somebody may have an idea that you didn't have, but it can complement what you already have going. So don't ever
Right.
brush anything off. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, I'll just throw one more idea out. I was talking to a friend of mine that has like a barbecue business. And we were talking and he was sharing an idea he had. And this is probably goes along with exactly with what you just said. He said that he was thinking about turning around and providing lunch and to get a lot of people that either are good customers or family, friends that are close, like that he could trust their opinion, and get them all together and have a little powwow and let them bring fresh ideas to something that he's working his business, but he would love to see the opinions and the ideas that some of his close friends, family, and customers would bring to the table, and that could re-innovate what he does. Right. And sometimes, that might be something you could even consider doing with your business if you're self-employed. You know what I mean?
That's so true. Yes.
And don't be afraid, because like the two brothers that originally started McDonald's, they were closed-minded. Here comes this guy, and they could have still been owners of McDonald's, right? If they had been open-minded and ran with these ideas.
Right.
But instead, and watch the movie, but it's sad at the end, because this guy that comes in or now the owner of McDonald's came in and pretty much left them with nothing.
Oh.
Took everything
Maybe
from
don't
them.
listen
No,
to your friend.
literally.
Yeah, I know.
No, but what I'm trying to
the
say
point
is
yeah.
it could have been different if they were open-minded if they would have ran with those ideas.
If they weren't comfortable, with what they
Exactly.
already believed
Right,
instead of, that's so
right,
true.
right.
I'm going to watch the movie.
Yeah, it was called The Founder with Michael Keaton.
It's
okay.
it's a really good movie. It's good you can get a lot from it and what to do and what not to do.
Oh, nice.
If you're a business owner, what not to do. And then if you're that one young person that's running for something, bigger, then, it's a good movie.
Awesome. Okay. So in wrapping up today, guys, we did start talking about transitioning in the workplace. We did segue into what do you decide to do when you're a married couple or a single person who's going to raise the children. Really think about what you want to do, especially if you're in you're in that position right now where you can think about it before bringing children into the world. And if not, if you already have the children, what is it that you want out of life and what do you want for them? We thank you guys so much for listening and can't wait to talk to you again.